Imagine this. It's the night before the biggest day of your life. Your suit is pressed, hanging in the closet. Your vows are written, folded neatly in your pocket. Your family has flown in from across the country. The venue is decorated. The caterer is confirmed. Everything is perfect. And then your phone buzzes. An unknown number. A message with no greeting, no name, just 7 words that will change everything. You deserve to know what happened. What follows is the beginning of the end, and nobody was expecting that. The week before my wedding was chaos, but the kind every engaged couple expects. It was phone calls at odd hours, last-minute vendor confirmations, and endless group texts with family members who could not figure out what time to arrive or where to park. My phone was glued to my hand from the moment I woke up until the moment I fell asleep. I was not anxious about the marriage itself. I was nervous about the logistics of pulling off a wedding without something going wrong. There were small fires to put out every single day. The caterer called to confirm final head counts, and I realized we had added 6 people to the guest list without updating the numbers. My aunt and uncle on my father's side had a long-standing feud with another branch of the family, so I had to rearrange the seating chart to ensure they were on opposite sides of the reception hall. A few out-of-town guests needed help coordinating transportation from the airport, and somehow that responsibility fell on me because I was good at organizing things. I handled all of it without complaint because that is who I am. I am the person who fixes problems, who stays calm under pressure, who makes sure everything runs smoothly so other people do not have to worry. I took pride in that role, and I was determined to make sure our wedding day was perfect. My fiancée was handling her own set of responsibilities during that week. She was coordinating with her bridesmaids, finalizing her hair and makeup appointments, and dealing with her side of the family's various demands and expectations. We barely saw each other during those final days because we were both so busy, but whenever we did cross paths, we would exchange tired smiles and remind each other that it would all be worth it. "Just a few more days," she would say, squeezing my hand. "And then it's just us." I believed her. I had no reason to. I trusted her completely, and that trust was not something I gave away easily. When I decided to ask her to marry me, it was after years of building a relationship, years of learning who she was and deciding that she was the person I wanted by my side for the rest of my life. I proposed intentionally and deliberately because I genuinely believed she was my person. I had handed her my complete confidence, and I never once doubted that she felt the same way about me. That is what made everything that came next so devastating. I was not looking for problems during that final week because I had no reason to believe any existed. I was counting down the hours until I could stand at the altar and promise my life to the woman I loved. I had no idea that the foundation I was standing on had already cracked, and that the truth was waiting for me like a trap I was about to walk into. The night before my wedding, I was alone in my hotel room. The room was dim, lit only by the lamp on the nightstand and the glow of my phone screen. I was lying on the bed, scrolling through text messages from family members who had arrived in town and wanted to wish me luck. My mother had sent a long, emotional message about how proud she was and how she could not wait to see me at the altar. I responded to everyone, thanking them and reassuring them that I was fine and ready. And I was ready. I felt calm, settled, certain. This was the night before the rest of my life, and I was exactly where I wanted to be. Then my phone buzzed with a notification from a number I did not recognize. There was no name attached to the message, no greeting, no introduction, just a single sentence that appeared on my screen without warning. "You deserve to know what happened at our bachelorette party." I stared at those words for a long moment, trying to make sense of them. My first instinct was to dismiss it entirely. I assumed it was a prank, maybe someone from my past trying to stir up trouble for no reason, or something. I almost set my phone down and let the night continue as planned, but before I could decide what to do, another notification appeared. This time, it was not text. It was a video. A short clip, 10 or 15 seconds long, recorded on someone's phone in what looked like a dimly lit room. The footage was shaky and blurry. I pressed play, not knowing what to expect, and what I saw made my stomach drop. The video showed my fiancée in a situation that left no room for interpretation. She was with 4 men, and what they were doing together was unmistakable. I struggled to accept what my eyes were seeing. I felt something inside me go completely still. The excitement I had felt just minutes earlier was gone. The calm confidence I had carried all evening had vanished. This video showed that the infidelity occurred while they were drunk. I could see that much from the videos. The sloppiness of movement, the loud laughter, the glazed expressions on faces that should have known better. Her friends were drinking heavily alongside her, and somewhere in that haze of alcohol and bad decisions, my fiancée ended up with 4 different men that night. I do not know if being drunk made it easier for her to cross lines she would not have crossed sober, or if the alcohol simply permitted her to do what she already wanted to do. Either way, it does not matter. Being drunk is not an excuse. It does not erase choices. It does not undo consequences. She made those decisions while intoxicated, but she still made them while I was at home, trusting her completely, believing every word she told me. When she came back from that bachelorette party, she had described the weekend as calm and uneventful. She told me they had gone out for a quiet dinner, enjoyed some drinks, caught up with each other, and called it a night because everyone was exhausted from traveling. She made it sound boring, almost forgettable. "Nothing crazy happened," she had said with a casual shrug. "Just quality time with the girls before the wedding madness starts." I believed her. I had no reason to. But there had been nothing quiet about that weekend. There had been nothing calm or uneventful about what happened after the dinners and the drinks. What made the betrayal cut even deeper was the realization that every woman who attended that bachelorette party knew exactly what had happened. They were there. They saw everything. Some of them probably held the phones that recorded those clips in the first place. And yet, when they came back home, every single one of them chose to stay silent. All of them knew, and all of them stayed quiet. The only person who broke that silence was a stranger. Someone whose number I did not recognize. Someone who sent those clips anonymously without any explanation of who they were or why they were doing it. I sat with that information for what felt like hours. I cannot say exactly how long, because time lost all meaning in that hotel room. At some point, I picked up my phone and tried to call the number that had sent me the evidence. I needed answers. I needed to know who this person was, why they had chosen to tell me, and whether they had any connection to my fiancée or her friends. But the call did not go through. The line was dead, disconnected, or perhaps a temporary number that had already been deactivated. I tried again, and again. Nothing. Whoever had sent me those clips did not want to be reached, and I eventually stopped trying. What surprised me most in those hours was the strange absence of the emotions I expected to feel. I had always imagined that if something like this ever happened to me, I would explode. I pictured rage, hot, consuming, impossible to control. I imagined myself throwing things, punching walls, screaming into the phone as I demanded answers from the woman who had betrayed me. But none of that happened. There was no rage. There was no shaking hands. No tears were rolling down my face or sobs catching in my throat. Instead, there was a profound emptiness, as if something essential had been removed from inside my chest and replaced with nothing at all. I felt hollow in a way I had never experienced before, like someone had scooped out everything that made me feel human and left behind only a shell. I sat on the edge of that hotel bed, completely still, staring at my phone, waiting for some emotion to arrive and tell me what to do next. Nothing came. This is the part of my story that confuses people the most. When I tell them what I discovered that night, they always expect the following sentence to involve a confrontation. They assume I called her immediately to demand an explanation. But that is not what happened. I never confronted my fiancé, Not that night, not the next morning, not ever. I never called her, I never demanded an explanation. I never allowed her to defend herself or apologize for what she had done. And when people hear that, they look at me like I skipped an essential step, like there is a missing chapter in my story that I forgot to include. But I thought carefully about the confrontation and made a deliberate choice not to participate. I sat in that hotel room and asked myself a simple question: what would confronting her actually accomplish? I played out the conversation in my head, imagining every possible direction it could take, and realized there were only three outcomes. The first outcome was that she would lie. She would deny everything, claim the videos were fake or manipulated, accuse someone of trying to sabotage our relationship, and try to gaslight me into questioning what I had seen with my own eyes. If she was capable of lying to my face for 3 weeks about what happened at her bachelorette party, she was certainly capable of lying again when cornered. That outcome would add insult to injury and waste what little emotional energy I had left. The second outcome was that she would make excuses. She would admit that something happened, but try to minimize it. She would blame the alcohol, claim she was not in her right mind, and insist that peer pressure pushed her into doing things she would never do sober. She might cry and tell me she barely remembers any of it, as if a lack of memory erased the choices she made. That outcome would minimize her actions and insult my intelligence. Being drunk does not make you accidentally sleep with 4 different men. That takes decisions, repeated decisions. The third outcome was that she would confess fully. She would tell me everything, every detail, every encounter, every moment I had not seen in those videos. She would force me to hear things I could never unhear, and make the images in my mind even more vivid and permanent. That outcome would only deepen my pain without changing anything. None of these outcomes would alter the fundamental truth: she had betrayed me, deliberately and secretly. She had made those choices knowing full well that she was engaged to me, that we were weeks away from our wedding, that I was at home trusting her completely while she did whatever she wanted with whoever she wanted. No conversation could undo that. No explanation could make it acceptable. No conversation could undo that damage. Confrontation would only give her a chance to manipulate the narrative. She would cry. I knew she would, and those tears would be designed to make me feel guilty for being hurt. She would beg for forgiveness, and that begging would shift the focus from her actions to my response. She would ask me to consider everything we had built together, remind me of the good times, and try to convince me that one terrible weekend should not erase years of love. I refused to participate in that script. I had already lost enough. I was not going to stand there while she tried to make me feel like the villain for refusing to marry someone who had betrayed me. After I made my decision, everything that followed happened with a calmness that still surprises me when I look back on it. My emotions were somewhere far away, locked in a place I could not access even if I wanted to. All that remained was logic, and logic told me precisely what I needed to do. I picked up my phone and sent a brief text to my brother. I asked him to meet me at a private location, somewhere we could talk without anyone overhearing or interrupting. I did not explain why. I did not give him any details about what had happened. I simply asked him to come, and because my brother knows me well, enough to recognize when something is seriously wrong, he agreed without pushing for answers. He said he would be there. When we met, I told him everything. I showed him the screenshots, the messages, the videos. I watched his face change as he processed what he was seeing, first confusion, then disbelief, then a quiet, simmering anger that he struggled to contain. He did not interrupt me. He did not try to offer solutions or tell me what I should do. He just listened, letting me get through the whole story without adding his own commentary. When I finished, he asked me a straightforward question. "What do you need from me?" I handed him instructions. My fiancée had been living with me in my house for the past year, and I needed to make sure she could not return there as if nothing had happened. I told my brother that if she showed up, he was to handle the situation. I gave him details about changing the locks, about coordinating with our family to collect anything she might have left behind, about ensuring that my home remained my space and not a place where she could come to plead her case or confront me when I was not ready. He took those instructions without argument, understanding why they were necessary. I did not write a note for my fiancée. I did not leave an explanation at the hotel or anywhere else. I did not send her a final message before blocking her number. There was nothing I wanted to say that she did not already know, whether she realized it yet or not. The moment she discovered I was not coming to the wedding, she would understand what had happened. She would know that someone had told me the truth. She would replay every lie she had told me over the past 3 weeks and realize that her secrets were no longer. I blocked her phone number before the next morning, which was supposed to be our wedding day. I did not want to receive her calls, her texts, or her voicemails. I did not want to hear her panic, her excuses, or her attempts to explain away what I had seen. I wanted silence, and I was going to protect that silence with everything I had. Then I traveled out of town to be alone. I drove for hours without a clear destination, eventually ending up in a place far from everyone I knew. I checked into a motel. People often describe disappearing as a dramatic act, something born of emotion and impulse, a desperate escape driven by panic or rage. But my departure was anything but surprising. It was intentional. Every step I took was designed to remove myself from a situation that had become unbearable without causing a scene, without giving anyone ammunition to paint me as unstable or cruel or irrational. I did not want theatrics. I did not want revenge. I simply ceased to participate in a wedding that had already been rendered meaningless by secrets. I was not there for my wedding day, so everything I know about what happened comes from secondhand sources, fragments of stories I pieced together later from my brother, from relatives who were willing to talk to me, and from the inevitable gossip that spread through our overlapping social circles. I did not ask for these details. I did not want them, but they found their way to me anyway, and now I carry them whether I like it or not. While guests were arriving at the venue in their formal attire, parking their cars, and making their way inside with smiles, gift bags, and expectations of a beautiful ceremony, I was already gone. My fiancée at that point was presumably in a bridal suite surrounded by her bridesmaids, the same women who had watched her betray me and said nothing, getting her hair and makeup done in preparation for walking down the aisle. I was not watching my phone. I was not refreshing my messages, waiting for notifications to tell me what was happening back at the venue. I was not tracking the chaos that I knew would unfold the moment people realized the groom was not coming. I knew it would happen. I knew there would be confusion, then panic, then frantic phone calls and whispered conversations, and eventually, the unavoidable announcement that the wedding would not take place. But I had no interest in witnessing any of it in real time. I had already seen enough. I did not need to see her face when she realized I was not coming. I did not need to hear her friends scramble for explanations or watch them try to figure out who had sent those anonymous messages. I did not need apologies or confirmations from people who had already proven their loyalty was not to me. Every woman who stood beside her on that wedding day had known what she did and chose to stay silent. Their opinions no longer mattered. Their guilt no longer concerned me. They had made their choice and I had made mine. What had happened was simple. When I stripped away all the emotion and confusion, she had made choices that required secrecy and deception. She had lied to me repeatedly, easily, without hesitation, for weeks, and I had made one choice in response, a choice that required dignity and self-respect. The two were incompatible. There was no version of events where I walked down that aisle, knowing what I knew, and lived with myself afterward. So I did not walk down that aisle at all. What followed the canceled wedding was precisely the kind of chaos I had anticipated, which is part of why I wanted to be far away when it happened. My fiancée called everyone she could think of, desperately trying to find me and understand what had gone wrong. She left voicemails that I never listened to and sent text messages that I never read because her number was blocked. She showed up at my house and found the locks changed, my brother standing guard, and no explanation waiting for her. She was frantic, confused, and, according to witnesses, completely devastated. But I felt nothing when I heard those reports. The woman I had loved no longer existed. Her friend group fractured almost immediately in the days that followed. When people realized that someone had sent me anonymous messages revealing what happened at the bachelorette party, suspicion spread like wildfire. Every woman who had been on that trip became a potential suspect. Accusations flew, alliances shifted. Some of her friends turned on each other, insisting they would never have done something like that, pointing fingers at whoever seemed most likely to betray the group. It was messy and ugly, and precisely the kind of drama I had chosen to avoid by leaving quietly. The stories that circulated about my fiancé's behavior changed depending on who was telling them. Some of her friends claimed she had been extremely drunk, so intoxicated that she was barely conscious of her actions. They framed the whole thing as a series of mistakes made under the influence of alcohol, as if being drunk erased accountability and transformed deliberate choices into accidents. Others argued that what happened meant nothing, that physical encounters outside a relationship could be separated from emotional commitment, and that I was overreacting by canceling the wedding over something so meaningless. A few people even suggested that I should have shown up anyway, that I owed it to her and to our families to at least have a conversation before making such a drastic decision. They said leaving without explanation was cowardly or cruel, that a real man would have faced the situation head-on instead of running away. I heard all of these opinions secondhand, and each one confirmed that I had made the right choice by refusing to engage. The irony of those accusations was not lost on me. None of the people criticizing my departure had asked what it cost me to stay silent. None of them had considered that showing up to that wedding and pretending everything was fine would have been the actual act of cowardice, a performance designed to avoid discomfort while guaranteeing years of resentment and pain. The blame shifted constantly as different parties tried to protect themselves, but I remained outside the chaos, watching from a distance without engaging. I could have gone through with the wedding. That thought crossed my mind more than once in the hours after I received that video. I could have deleted the evidence, pretended I never saw it, walked down the aisle the next morning with a smile on my face and vows in my pocket. I could have buried my pain so deep that no one would ever know it existed, but I understood, even in my emptiest moments, that the marriage would not have survived. The resentment would have grown every single day. Every time she told me she loved me, I would wonder if she was lying. Every time she went out with friends, I would imagine the worst. Trust once destroyed does not rebuild easily, and what she did was not a crack in the foundation. It was a demolition. Eventually, everything would have collapsed anyway, only messier and more painful than a clean break at the beginning. People have asked me many times why I never explained myself. They want to know why I did not sit down with my fiancée and tell her exactly why I left. They want to know why I did not send a message to her family to clarify what happened or issue a statement to our mutual friends, so they would stop guessing and gossiping. They think that an explanation would have provided closure for her, for them, and maybe for me too. But I thought about this carefully, and I stand by my decision to say nothing. Every explanation would have been met with a counter-argument designed to make me feel guilty for protecting myself. That is how manipulation works. It does not attack the facts directly. It attacks your interpretation of the facts. It makes you wonder whether you are overreacting, being too rigid, or should be more understanding and willing to let things go. It rewrites truth little by little until you are no longer sure what actually happened or how you are supposed to feel about it. I refuse to participate in that cycle. I understood that manipulation works by rewriting truth, by making the victim question their own perceptions and judgments until they no longer trust what they saw with their own eyes. By staying silent, I removed myself from the battlefield entirely. There was nothing to argue about because I never presented an argument. There was nothing to negotiate because I never opened a negotiation. There was nothing to reinterpret because I never offered my interpretation for scrutiny. The evidence existed, I had made it, and I was not going to unmake it. Everything else was noise. I acknowledge that many people found my silence frustrating or even cruel. My fiancée probably spent weeks or months wondering exactly what I knew and how I found out. Her family probably speculated endlessly about what had gone wrong. Our mutual friends probably debated among themselves, taking sides, creating theories, trying to fill in the blanks I refused to fill. Some of them probably blamed me, decided I was the villain, and concluded that anyone who disappears without a word must be hiding something or running from his own guilt. But my silence was not passive or weak. It was a deliberate act of self-preservation. It was the only response that preserved my sanity and my self-respect. As time passed, I had plenty of time to reflect on everything that happened. I eventually found out who sent me those messages. It was one of my fiancée's friends, a woman who had a falling out with her at some point. This particular friend was not actually at the Bachelorette party, but she probably got the clips from someone who was. Whether she sent them to me out of genuine concern for the truth or simply because she wanted to hurt my fiancé, I do not know. Maybe it was both. Perhaps she convinced herself she was doing the right thing while also enjoying the destruction it would cause. Her motives no longer matter to me. Whatever her reasons, she gave me the information I needed to make an informed decision about my own life. Even with this realization, I am not going to give you a triumphant update about how everything worked out perfectly for me after I walked away. This is not one of those stories in which the protagonist finds someone better within 6 months and lives happily ever after, while the person who wronged him suffers endless misery. Real life does not work that way. I have not found a new partner who restored my faith in love. I have not achieved some dramatic success that proved my ex-fiancé wrong about me. I have just continued living, one day at a time, trying to rebuild a sense of normalcy after having my entire future torn apart by someone I trusted. I am still here. I am still standing. I am still choosing to live by my own values rather than anyone else's expectations. I did not let what happened to me turn me into a bitter person who refuses to trust anyone ever again. I did not let it destroy my relationships with my family and friends, the people who stood by me when everything fell apart. Some people will never understand the choice I made. They will always see me as the villain who abandoned a woman on her wedding day without a word. They will tell themselves that I was cold, cruel, cowardly, or all three. I have made peace with that misunderstanding. The people whose opinions actually matter to me know the truth. They saw the evidence. They understand why I did what I did. Everyone else is entitled to their assumptions, but those assumptions do not define me. If you are listening to this and you find yourself in a situation similar to mine, if you discover something that shatters your trust in someone you love, if you are faced with a decision that will change the course of your life, I want to leave you with a few thoughts. Trust what you see over what you are told. When the evidence is clear, do not let anyone convince you that your eyes are lying to you. Protect your dignity, even when it costs you everything else. You are not obligated to participate in your own humiliation, no matter how much someone begs or how many people pressure you to forgive and forget. And remember that some truths do not require explanation. Some endings do not need closure. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away and never look back.